Good day, and welcome back. I got some really good news for you people today. You don't have to do things any particular way. That's pretty good news. You can pretty much do what you want. Well, not entirely, but within reason. See, one of the things that in the horse world you will hear a lot of people saying how you have to do things a certain way. You have to use certain equipment. You know, there are certain conventions and rules to abide by. And, well, the worst answer you're going to get it when you ask why they do it that way is, well, it's always been done that way, which basically means they don't have a clue why they're doing it. They're just doing it because everybody else is doing it. Don't feel pressured into doing things a certain way because other people are doing it that way. Now, this video is inspired by, well, a couple days ago I was riding Clint and somebody asked me a few questions about some of the tack I was using on him. And the very following day, I was watching a series of videos from another horseman who I have a great deal of respect for. And he was explaining how some certain equipment that I'm not familiar with, it's not something that you use on a riding horse, but he was explaining how this equipment worked, how it went together, and how it got adjusted and all this stuff. And repeatedly through his series of videos, he quite often said something that I've said something very similar myself is, there is, official ways of doing things. There are accepted conventions and traditions and such. He says, and a lot of you people are going to tell me I'm wrong, but this is how I do it. You don't have to do it this way. Well, he said that in a few of his other videos as well, but that just kind of went along with the conversation I had the day previous. And something I have said a lot of times in my videos is, you don't have to do things my way. You don't have to do anything any one way in particular. You have to do what works for you. I said in my recent video on experimenting is you got to figure out what works best for you. You have to experiment. So, there's no one right way of doing things. If it works for you and your horse, it's the right way. That's it. Simple as that. And I want to show you a couple things on this particular horse because I quite often do things that are a little non-conventional, not the way everybody else does it. And I don't really care. I have my reasons. And, that's another thing this guy I was watching his videos. He took the time to explain why he did things a certain way. And quite often there was some good reasoning behind it. It wasn't just that he was being different. But I want you to take a good look at this horse. Pause the video if you want. Take a good look at this picture you're seeing and tell me what's missing. Well, there's at least three, depending on how you count them and what you consider, anywhere from 3 to 5 things that are missing. Have you paused that video and taken a good look? Well, I'll give you a hint. Well, actually, I'm not going to give you a hint. I'm just going to go right out and tell you. First off, no rear cinch. I did have one years ago on one of my saddles. This one didn't come with one. I don't care. My other saddle doesn't even have a provision for one. But I don't use a rear cinch. I just can't be bothered. Partly it's an expense you don't need because you need the strap that comes down on both sides, the cinch that goes underneath, and then there's another small strap that goes up to front, attaches to your cinch to keep the two of them together so the back one doesn't go back and make a horse buck, which can happen if you're not careful. In total, there's about, 4 pieces of equipment you have to buy. It's going to probably cost you at least another $100. And unless you are riding up and down steep grades or maybe doing some roping, you don't really need one. This is my reason for not using one. Depending on the rigging and the placement of your cinch and the rigging on the saddle, the rear cinch, the purpose of the rear cinch is to keep the back of the saddle down. So if you're roping and you tie onto something that really pulls forward hard, the back end of the saddle doesn't come flying up and send you over the horse's head. But if you're not roping, you pretty much don't need one. And depending on how the rigging is set up, there's not much risk of that tail end of that saddle coming up unless you're going down a very, very steep grade and the horse hits the brakes. And even then, maybe not if the saddle fits properly. I've talked about that stuff too. If you got a proper fitting saddle and your cinch placement, rigging, and everything is where it should be, chances are you don't even need a rear cinch, especially if you're not roping. 'Cause that's the first thing that I'm missing. Let's see, what else is missing? Oh yeah, no breast collar. In case you didn't notice that one. There's no breast collar on this one. Now, that's yet another thing that an awful lot of people use, and I don't think they even know why they use it. They just think it's something that you're supposed to have on your saddle. A lot of saddles come with them. A lot of people use them. I don't. Again, I had one other saddle that had a breast collar. I used it just because it was there. Even with that one, a lot of times I didn't use it. I'd take it off and throw it in a corner. Because if your saddle fits properly, well, the purpose of the breast collar, which would attach to, say, on the case of this saddle, these rings here. These ones are reasonably substantial. Some saddles, they aren't very good, and I don't really know what good they would do. But it goes around the front of the horse, up onto the other side, and then has one more strap goes down and hooks onto the front of your cinch. There's actually a ring on the front and back of the cinch in the center of it, underneath there for hooking things onto. I don't use it. They're there, though. Most cinches come with them. Not all, but most. Anyhow, the purpose is to keep your saddle from sliding back. Well, again, if the saddle's fitting proper, that's not much of an issue, and especially if you're not climbing particularly steep grades. So that would be the second piece of equipment that I'm not using, because I'm not in the mountains. I'm not going up and down steep hills. I do not need a breast collar. Well, another thing that you will notice if you go a little further forward is you'll notice there's no bit in her mouth. Now, like I said, depending on how you count things, this could be from 1 to 3 things right here that we're missing. There's no bit, there's no bridle, and these aren't even reins. This is actually my lead rope that I'm using. And, a lot of people think you got to have a proper bridle. A lot of people think you absolutely have to have a bit, and depending on where you go, some places will insist that you must use one. I don't care for that. I don't think anybody should have the right to tell me how I should practice my horsemanship. And, here's my theory on this one, and this part really has nothing to do with the whole bit or anti-bit or bitless thing. Because I'm not using a bitless bridle, which there are many variations of. And this is just a rope halter. Now, why am I using a rope halter? Well, financially, I don't have to buy a bridle. I don't have to buy a bit. I don't have to buy reins. I actually have all those things already, but I don't use them anymore. I don't have to take the time to switch from one to the other. All that stuff. This is much quicker and easier. And I am kind of lazy. Plus, when you do your groundwork throughout the entire training process, you're just using an halter anyhow. And the horse learns very quickly to respond to whatever your request is with a halter. So once you put the saddle on and you start riding the horse, you really don't need anything else. So it's simply a case of, I don't need it. So if I don't need it, I'm not going to use it. Just a waste, totally unnecessary. Now this goes back to 2 of the things that I was asked about when I was riding Clint the other day. They asked, don't you use a rear cinch? Well, that was my other saddle on him, and that one doesn't even have a provision for rear cinch, and I was just training him, and at that time, I certainly wasn't going to be doing any roping. That was not a roping saddle either. There was absolutely no need for a cinch on that one. That was the first question. Then they noticed, well, don't you use a bit? I said, what for? I get absolutely everything I need without one. Why bother? It's not a case of bit or bitless. Not that argument at all. It's just a case of why bother? I get absolutely everything I need without a bit. Why would I bother? So, those are lots of things that people use. I have no idea why they use it. Like I said, unless you're going up a steep incline, that breast collar is complete waste, but nobody even knows why they put one on. They just figured It's part of the attire. You want to look real Western. I don't know. Something like that. Or same with the rear cinch. It's just one more thing to get in the way, one more thing to do up, and another $100 to spend if you buy it separately if the saddle doesn't come with it. This one didn't come with it. I am not going out to buy one. If it happened to come with it, I might use it. But anyhow, that is my little bit on that stuff, is basically do whatever you want. What if it works for you? It works for you. You do not have to do things a certain way. Just because everybody else does it a certain way, don't let peer pressure get to you. Oops. Have a good day.